Hi, Mr. C here, and we're going to do a guided reading book. This one is a Read at Home level 4B. It's called Hungry Floppy. And in our guided reading, this is where you get a chance to do the reading 4 times through the book. First time, we're just going to do a picture walk, talk lots about what you see in the picture and what's happening. Second time through, I'll do a read aloud where I'll read the story to you, and then you can find out whether what you thought happened in the pictures matches the story itself. Third time through, we'll do an echo read. That's where I read first, and then you read next. And then the last time, you'll get a chance to do your own independent read. Remember, you can pause this video at any point in order to spend more time on a page to talk about a picture or practice that part of the reading on that page. All right, let's get started. Read at Home, level 4B, Hungry Floppy. So we're going to do our picture walk first. This is where we're only looking at the pictures and talking about what we see happening in the pictures. So what's the family doing? Where are they? What are they trying to figure out? Does this picture give us a better idea of where they are? What they're doing? Where's Floppy? What's happening here in this picture? Oh, what's happening now? What's happening in this picture? Oh, what's happening now? Let's take a look at this picture. Where's Floppy? What do you think Floppy's doing? I wonder if this sign is important. Where is Floppy now? What do you think he might do? What is Floppy doing? What's happening here? Now what's happened? What is Floppy doing here? Now what's Floppy doing? And now, what is Floppy doing? Does this story resemble a fairy tale? Wonder who these people are. What do they notice? Who are these 3 characters? What do they notice here? And what do they notice here? What do you think they're doing? And what's happening in here? Here's our last page. What's about to happen now? What are the families doing? Here's a few questions on this page we can try and answer, just from looking at the pictures to get an idea of what the story is about. Why did Floppy steal the food? Was he wrong to steal it? Why didn't Floppy go and look for Kipper himself? How is this story like Goldilocks and the Three Bears? What would you do if you got lost in a strange place? Okay, we're ready to do this in part 2, which is a read aloud. I've got my trusty yellow highlighter here to read you the story. Hungry Floppy. The family went camping. They put up a tent. It took a long time to put up the tent. Floppy was hungry. Floppy was so hungry, he ran off to look for food. A man was cooking. That smells good, thought Floppy, and I'm so hungry. Go away, called the man. You can't have our dinner. Floppy ran off. Floppy saw a dog's bowl. This smells good, he thought, and I'm so hungry. A big dog barked at Floppy. Go away, growled the dog. You can't have my dinner. Floppy was lost. He saw lots of tents, but they all looked the same to him. Floppy could smell something. He sniffed and sniffed. Something smelled good. Floppy went inside the tent. He saw 3 plates. There was a slice of cake on each one. By now, Floppy was very hungry, so he ate the big slice. He was still hungry, so he ate the smaller slice. But Floppy was still hungry, so he ate the very small slice too. I need a rest now, he thought. There were 3 beds. Floppy went on the blue bed, but it was too hard. Then Floppy went on the green bed, but it was too soft. In the end, he lay on the red bed. It was not too hard or too soft. It was just right, so he went to sleep. Soon a girl came back to the tent with her mum and dad. It was Anina. Someone has eaten my cake, said Anina. Someone has eaten all the cake, said Anina's mum. And look, who's sleeping on your bed? It's Floppy, said Anina. What are you doing here, you naughty dog? Anina and her dad looked for Biff and Chip. At last, they found them. What a surprise to see you, said Biff. Anina told them about Floppy. Never mind, said Dad. Stay and have some of our cake. Okay, let's do part 3 of reading through the story. This time it's going to be an echo read. Remember, Mr. C reads first, and then you read. Okay, Mr. C's turn. The family went camping. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. They put up a tent. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. It took a long time to put up the tent. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy was hungry. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy was so hungry he ran off to look for food. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. A man was cooking. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. That smells good, thought Floppy, and I'm so hungry. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Go away, called the man. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. You can't have our dinner. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy ran off. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy saw a dog's bowl. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. This smells good, he thought, and I'm so hungry. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. A big dog barked at Floppy. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Go away, growled the dog. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. You can't have my dinner. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy was lost. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. He saw lots of tents, but they all looked the same to him. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy could smell something. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. He sniffed and sniffed. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Something smelled good. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy went inside the tent. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. He saw 3 plates. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. There was a slice of cake on each one. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. By now, Floppy was very hungry. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. So he ate the big slice. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. He was still hungry, so he ate the smaller slice. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. But Floppy was still hungry, so he ate the very small slice too. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. I need a rest now, he thought. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. There were 3 beds. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Floppy went on the blue bed, but it was too hard. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Then Floppy went on the green bed, but it was too soft. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. In the end, he lay on the red bed. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. It was not too hard or too soft. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. It was just right. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. So he went to sleep. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Soon a girl came back to the tent with her mum and dad. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. It was Anina. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Someone has eaten my cake, said Anina. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Someone has eaten all the cake, said Anina's mom. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. And look, who's sleeping on your bed? Your turn. Mr. C's turn. It's Floppy, said Anina. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. What are you doing here, you naughty dog? Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Anina and her dad looked for Biff and Chip. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. At last, they found them. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. What a surprise to see you, said Biff. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Anina told them about Floppy. Your turn. Mr. C's turn. Never mind, said Dad. Your turn. And Mr. C's turn. Stay and have some of our cake. Your turn. Okay, last time through the book, part 4. This is where you're going to get to do your own independent reading. Remember, you can pause this video if you need longer on a page at any point, if you need longer to talk about pictures or longer to reread the page. And remember, you can go back and rewind this as well to read the pages over and over. We want to get you to the speed where you're not making any mistakes, where you don't need any help, and where you're able to read as the same speed that you would talk. All right, let's give it a start with the title first. Well done. Good job. Remember, keep reading this story over and over again till you've mastered it. Mastering it means no mistakes, no need for help, and reading at the same speed that you would talk. Keep having fun with the book. Well done.